Amen. In that same spirit, if you will take a few moments to just continue to settle in and feel the presence of God, which is the activity of intelligence, but in plain language, it's the presence of life itself that animates all of us. It is that in which we live, move, and have our being, but it is also the thing in which we live and move and have being. We see its activity in life outside of us, from the sunrise to the sunset to the seasons changing. Take a few moments just to connect with that and enjoy the pregnant pause, to give yourself time to relax and settle. And when you're ready, affirm with me that all is well by taking a big deep breath into the nose. Release the sound of letting it all go, knowing that when you let go and when you release, that the presence of life within you will guide everything else in your life and lead you to perfect peace. If you will, rub your hands together. Let's send this healing energy to those that are watching online. Point at the camera, say this with me. Divine love in us blesses and multiplies all that you hear and all that you receive. Know in this moment you are safe and you are loved. And so it is. Our ministry is supported by partners like you. Remember to log on to unitybham.org and click on giving. Moderators are always on standby before and after the service, so wherever you see this message, either on Facebook, YouTube, or our website, be sure to post your comment or your prayer request there, and we will pray for you. And also, I'd like to take a moment just to send a special blessing to our regular online attendees. Put your hands together for all those that watch online. They are an integral part of our ministry. From Mother Joan, who we haven't physically seen in a while, but she is there every week. Mother Joan, we honor you and we see you. To the Franks, Dr. Frank and Dr. Mary Lou, we honor you and we see you. To Nick and Leah, we know that you're watching online. We honor you and we see you. And to everyone, if I can't remember your name, we love you, we bless you, and we behold the Christ within you. Amen, somebody. Amen. It's good to honor those who, sacred text says, labor among you. And labor is a very tense and intense word, but you have to give honor and respect to those that have kind of paved the way, and they're right there with you. And it reminds me of the mystic Paul's quote, "We are now surrounded by a cloud of witnesses." In fact, join me in a collective affirmation. We are now surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. It lets you know you're not by yourself. You're not by yourself and you're not alone, which means that even if you can't see a person physically because they're not embodied in front of you, they're there. And the mystic Paul goes so deep to tell us that we're surrounded by a cloud of witnesses that are not necessarily embodied on the physical plane. So whether you call them angels or you call them ancestors, you call them gods, or you're a part of the Gaiac community or the Celtic community, you call them fairies, and you talk about the thin places where the veil between life and death, or this incarnation and the next, meet. That veil is in your body and in your nervous system. You carry within your DNA the imprint of everyone who has lived and the potential for everyone who will live, which means that you are not alone. And when you are in places and spaces in the world and you don't feel safe, you can be safe in this body because you carry within you eons of intelligence that we know now as DNA, but they didn't call it DNA at one time. But you carry with you an entire team. Or in the words of the mystic Jesus, you are a city set on a hill that cannot be hid. So do me a favor, if you don't remember anything else that I say today, don't turn down your light for nobody. Be who you are. Be your authentic self with all of your swag, with all of your beauty, with all of the love that you embody, because you are not just home here, but you are home in this body and you are home in the world. If you believe that, say amen. Amen. Because I think that is something that we really, really need to hear, especially as we reflect on the nature of the world. And based on just the impression that Spirit placed upon me, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to call it audible today. It's a football play. Who likes football? I'm going to change up my message just a little bit. I always try to keep 2 or 3 in my pocket because starting off when you're by yourself, you hear exactly what Spirit is saying. And then on the way here, Spirit says a little bit more. And then you look around and you see the people and it's like, man, this ain't what I'm prepared for. They got different needs. And then I hear the presence of God, which is why all of our mentors tell me to study wide, because you prepare a message by yourself. And to those that have to speak publicly, I got to tell you, it's fun and it's also laborious. But you also have to remember you are preparing in a vacuum. You're missing the people. How can you prepare a message for people that you do not see? You got to see them. Say this with me. I am the missing piece of the puzzle. So when I come here and I see you all, I'm like, oh, that's what God is saying. Gotcha. So today's topic is looking back. Say this with me. Looking back. Looking back. And yes, I prepared for it, so I'm not going to just wobble and audible and just talk. But in honor of everything that we have experienced as a community, And everything that we've experienced collectively in this country and in other countries, and because it's way past or way deep in the fourth quarter of the year, I can't help but look back and reflect on everything that we've experienced. And while it may be difficult for some people to count it all good, what I can say is that we are all alive and we are all here. Sometimes you have to find that grounding moment, that starting point, and you start from there, and then you're able to look outward. Looking back can be painful at times. Who's ready for Thanksgiving and holidays? People we haven't seen in a while. Yes, there's a reason why you haven't seen them in a while. But say this with me. I'm just here for the pie. If you find that one thing that keeps you coming back to the conversation, that is a spiritual practice. Being there for that pie, that is a spiritual practice. And watch this. Being at home enough in your body where you don't turn your light down for nobody, that is a spiritual practice. So if you don't remember anything I say again, keep living. Because life itself, living and breathing, that is spiritual activism. Showing up in your body, honoring who you are, honoring your space that you occupy, honoring your voice and not letting your voice be silenced. That right there, God is in that. And when you tune within and turn inward to that, whatever shows up in the external world is just noise. And in the words of Michael Beckwith, you realize at some point, I'm not here to take from the world. I'm here to give. Sometimes the world doesn't recognize your gift because they haven't seen it before. Of course they haven't seen it before because you ain't been here before. But when you show up and you get invited to the party, then everything around you will change. And I've come to that conclusion just through looking back. Just by looking back at everything that God has done, everything that God is in the process of doing in all of us, and the people who show up in our world. Their opinions, their ideas, who they are, who they embody. And it's tough sometimes. But here's what research says. Psychological research says that when you're looking back, the whole goal of looking back is to harness the collective experience and wisdom of the past so that you don't repeat those mistakes in the present, even if looking back is painful. But the goal of life isn't to look back in order to dig like you're digging at a scab, but you're looking back because you're committed to personal growth. In other words, when you look back, you don't have to necessarily stay there. Emily Cady says in Lessons in Truth that we suffer in that first part where she talks about bondage or liberty. We suffer because when we look back or we look back at the stuff of the past, we kind of get caught in this feedback loop, if I can kind of ad-lib or quote. And suffering happens when we get caught in that wheel. But say this with me, I am not bound by external circumstances. So regardless of what's showing up in the present or what had shown up in the past, there is still freedom. And that freedom is found in the breath. That freedom is found at home in the body. And if all you can do, if your external world is painful and traumatic, is go there, believe it or not, that is enough. Because with the breath, being at home in the body, and then watch this, recognizing that there is the potential for more, that life is not done with you yet, as simple as that sounds, possibility can emerge. Light can come in the darkness. Come on, somebody. Things can get better over time. If you don't believe me, look at the generations represented here in this room together. The intergenerationality that we have as a collective people. They can tell you about living through some tough times. They can tell you about what it means to carry the light within their own bodies, even if that light isn't necessarily reflected outside. And that's what Spirit is calling all of us today, to look back, to not just look back and see the doom and gloom or to get caught up there or to do the blame, shame, and guilt trip that we do where we say, oh, this went wrong because of. The fact of the matter is there are some things in life that just happen. Sometimes beyond our control, sometimes we played a part with it or part in it. But the beautiful thing about consciousness is that it is not bound by time. We can move forward, we can move backward, and we can move in and out of different time zones. But when you look back, my call to you is that you don't allow the trauma or the mistakes or the things that did not go right in the past to stop you from the blessings that are about to happen in 2025. Say this with me, 2025 is going to be different. And you have to look for that, even if it doesn't happen on a collective level, because I'm here to tell you, at 37 years old, I've noticed that change doesn't often happen overnight. It takes an entire generation, and sometimes the changes that you're working for in the present, they're not necessarily for you. Sacred text says Moses led his people to the promised land, and he could look over and see the potential and see it, but he did not go in it in body. He went there with them in spirit. And that is the work that we're called to sometimes, to set the ground floor, to till the ground for the generation that is coming, that is not even yet here, that is still in the process. So with that understanding, we are forced to see the world in a state of becoming. And that's the hard part of spiritual practice, because the spiritual practices that we do, our yoga, our meditation, they are so that life can be beautiful right now, right? Wrong. Spiritual practice is not an insurance policy that gets us out of pain and uncomfortability. But spiritual practice can be a method by which you process the stuff of life at a faster rate, and you go from post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic resiliency. So it does get better. And I want you to hear that in this message. So when you look back, or when you return back to the things in your mind that once were, I don't want you to just get stuck in the past or get stuck in that feedback loop that happens. Look back, see the actions that took place, take that information and use it as a tool to build a better today and to build a better tomorrow. Can you say amen to that?
Amen.
I want to take you back into history, because I do love history, and I want to connect you with sacred texts. Emily Cady was the author. And if you've never heard of Emily Cady, I advise you to purchase Lessons in Truth, because she talks about in her work how I use truth, which is my goal for today. To not just talk about this stuff, but to kind of tell you how to use it, because we need actual tools that we can use. So sacred text says in Genesis 19, everybody remembers the story of Edith, or better known as Lot's wife. That story is an old story. It comes out of a long oral tradition, but according to scholars, historically, they believe it was penned in the 3rd century. So the 3rd century BCE, what we're talking about, just to bring it home, we're talking about 800,000 days ago. Notice the time shift. When you look at life in terms of days instead of years and millennium, things get really, really real. So we're talking 3rd century BCE, which was about 800,000 days ago. And in that story, there was a woman by the name of Edith, and the rabbinical tradition did not do her right because they robbed her of her name. But I'm here to tell you today, her name is Edith. And what makes Edith so powerful, like a lot of women, was that she had the courage to look back. Here's why she looked back. Edith looked back while everyone in the city was experiencing the destruction that was going on. Edith looked back because she wasn't just thinking about herself. She looked back because she thought about the children. And she thought about things outside of herself. She thought about those family members who didn't have the consciousness that she had. She thought about those people who wanted to get out of their suffering, wanted to get out of their trauma, but they could not for whatever reasons. And as a result of looking back, myth punished her. And it's an unfortunate tale, that part, because mythology always seems to punish the people who look back. But today, I'm here to redeem her, because the looking back portion of consciousness is one of the greatest things that life could have given us. Because without that tool, it'll be difficult to build a beautiful today, and it'll be difficult to build a better tomorrow. Say this with me. Sometimes you have to look back.
You have to look back.
You have to. And in the process of looking back, sacred text says she was turned into a pillar of salt. Now, for those of you who are academics in the room, there is archaeological evidence to kind of support this tale. And this is important because I want you to see it within the context of human history. In the 1650 BCE, which was about 1.5 million days ago, right? 1.5 million days ago, in the Jordan Valley, a cataclysmic event happened. An asteroid fell and broke up in the sky, and pieces of it hit that region, and about 1,000 people were lost. And as a result of that event, mythology and And stories grew out of that event where the people who survived were trying to tell a tale to the folks that will come after them about how to live and how to be and how to move on as a result of struggle. This is what happens when we look back and don't get caught in the story. Painful things can happen in the world. Disappointments can happen. There can be breaches in family, breaches in communication, breaches between lovers, breaches between aunts and uncles and friend groups. But things can get better over time when you harness the wisdom and don't get stuck in the pain. And so I said all that to say this. Edith's looking back was a courageous tale because it showed us that through the process of us living our lives and living our own truths, that this work that we do is not just for us. That sometimes we, in fact, in life, if I can be honest, we bear the burden of the responsibility and we take the hit so that other people won't have to. So the next time we're experiencing a cataclysmic event in this country, think about it like this, and this might be too harsh for Sunday morning, but it's a truth nonetheless, that sometimes generations take an impact so that other generations won't have to. There are lessons that we learn sometimes in this generation so that we could teach others through our mistakes and also through our wins so that they can do better. Can you say amen to that? Amen. So Edith's consciousness allowed her to embody that idea, and as a result of that, she was turned into a pillar of salt. But here's the beautiful thing about salt. Sacred text says in that story of Genesis 19 that she was basically stuck there. The mystics say that if you were to make plain the notion of being turned into a pillar of salt, it means that you had a stroke. But salt is dissolved in water. So for all of the uncomfortability that we experience, the uncomfortability of the polarization of America and all of this other stuff that's going on, remember the saltiness only adds to the problem. That salt has to be dissolved in water, the watery nature of love, the watery nature of spirit, the watery nature of divine ideas, the watery nature of your practice, because you're going to need something to keep you going. And so several thousand years later, Edith isn't stuck there in the Middle East, but Edith is alive in all of our consciousness because she had the courage to look back to see what went wrong and to urge those who didn't have the consciousness to do better to try. And that is all that life asks of us, to try, to get back out there, to keep fighting, to embody the light, to not allow the circumstances of life to dim your light. But according to Jesus, you let your light shine before the world so that the world could possibly see your good works. Because the world might be in darkness doesn't mean you have to be. So Jesus says, take my yoke upon you, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. That burden is L-I-G-H-T. It's light. It's a blessing to us that we have these teachings. It's a blessing that we're in the know, but it's also a great responsibility. It's a responsibility that admonishes us to carry the light no matter what shows up in the external world, to keep doing your practices, to speak even if you think no one is listening. And if you don't have the words, to live your truth and embody it and walk out there in the world. And you'd be surprised because that light will draw to itself of its own. You'll meet another light worker and another one and another one. And eventually you find community and that light turns into a flame and it shines bright enough to let the world know that possibility and love still exists. So my final invitation to you is to keep living, keep trying. Because although there might have been mistakes in the past, although there might have been things in life that did not go right, there are so many things that are yet to unfold that are beautiful and loving if you give life a chance. Thank you for listening. Peace and blessings. Our offering. For those of you that do watch online, remember to log on to unitybham.org and click on giving. For those that give in-house, our ushers are going to make their way forward to collect the offering while Adonna gives us a special selection. Take a look, Adonna.
That light turns into
bless this offering. Rub your hands together and point them in the direction of the gentleman carrying the offering. Say this with me. We bless this offering.
We bless this offering.
Affirming it will be used for the building of this ministry. We bless the givers. We declare that gifts will return to them with good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And so it is. Put your hands together one more time.
We could all stand for let there be peace on earth. Prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us.
I am the light of God.
The love of God enfolds us.
I am the love of God.
The power of God protects us.
I am the power of God.
The presence of God watches over us.
I am the presence of God.
Wherever we are, God is.
Wherever I am, God is, and
all is
is
well.
well.
Thank you much. Join us downstairs for a potluck.